The Radical. Fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, everybody, welcome to Yaron Brook Show on this May 23rd, my birthday. Thank you for all the good wishes. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Johnny. Thank you, Robert. And I know there are a few of you in the chat as well. Jennifer, Robin, Thomas, Frank. Really appreciate the best wishes. Thank you. Yeah, I am 63 today. I'm inching slowly and systematically towards. I don't even think of it as 65. I think of it as Medicare. I have no idea what happens and what Medicare does and how it works and any of that. Maybe some of you who've done this already can explain it to me. I just have this dread of my quality of my healthcare falling off a cliff. It's probably not true, but suddenly I'm like become, and by force, there's no option. You can't get private insurance. You can get supplemental private insurance. It's like at 65 you become a ward of the state. You become part of socialized medicine. So I think that is the main thing that I find scary about the whole thing. But yes, I am the ripe old age, or not so old. I don't feel old at all. And I don't, of 63. So, and I'm willing to challenge any of you kind of on a bench press. So maybe at Ocon, if you see me at the gym, we can do a little compete. Just to maybe you can let me win. So just to let me feel good about it. Yeah, let's fake reality. That'll make us feel good. All right, let us jump in. Sadly, and I do say this. Sadly, the show today is like not just a little negative, it's like depressingly, horrifically, unbelievably negative. I mean, the world is just going to hell. It just seems like every day it's getting worse. And it's just a disaster. So we're going to cover that. We're going to cover how the world is a disaster and what's going on and what's happening. And, tomorrow we'll cover a positive topic. We'll do something positive, something educational. But as of today, we're gonna just be in the muck, and it's going to be a good opportunity for me to just get some stuff off my chest and just lash out at some people and some things that are going on in the world that justify me lashing out at them. All right, so we're going to get started. We're going to devote the first part of it to kind of general news items, and the second part of it to discussing what's going on in Gaza. There's a lot going on that I haven't talked about that I want to dig a little deeper into and articulate and maybe express outrage at the same time. I do think Israel is turning out to be, the war in Gaza is turning out to be basically the moral litmus test of the world right now. Where you stand on this says everything about who you are and what you are. So it really does become a litmus test. All right, let's just see. Ryan, thank you for the wishes, best wishes. I appreciate it. All right, give me 10 seconds and I'll be right back. All right, so let's jump in. With what is going on at our amazing elite universities. This morning, there is a story out that really is, in many respects, not surprising and not anything new to, I think, a lot of us, but it just has become much more vivid. There is somebody leaking information about the way in which UCLA is choosing its medical students, not just any students, but medical students. So, and by what criteria they are using in order to choose those students. And this information is really scary for anybody who is going to need a doctor in the future. It's really scary, and it's going to add up to the better universities have worse students. And you know, you used to go check in a doctor and see on the wall, is he Ivy League or is he not Ivy League? And now it might be that you want the no Ivy League one over the yes Ivy League one. So this is, I'm reading off of this whistleblower's, I guess, release about his experiences at UCLA. And I'm just going to read this to you. So when it came time for admissions committee to consider one such student in November 2021, this is DI student, a black applicant with grades and test scores far below the UCLA average, some members of the committee felt that this particular candidate, based on the available evidence, was not the best fit for the top-tier medical school, according to two people present for the committee's meeting. Their reservations were not well received. When an admissions officer voiced concern about the candidate, the two people said the Dean of Admissions, Jennifer Lucero, exploded in anger. Did you know African-American women are dying at a higher rate than anyone else? Lucero asked the admissions officer. These people said the candidate's scores shouldn't matter, she continued, because we need people like this in the medical school. Even before the Supreme Court landmark affirmative action ban last year, public schools in California were barred by state law from considering race in admissions. The outburst from Lucero, who discussed race explicitly despite the ban, unsettled some admissions officers, one of whom reached out to other committee members in the wake of the incidents. And, you know, and let's see if I've got the continuation of this. It doesn't work. Oh, everything doesn't work now. All right. You get still there? That's, I hope. Why is Chrome frozen? Not working. Not working. Something's happening. Let me see if I can get, okay, that's working now. All right, wait, all right. All right, that is working. All right, my computer maybe has too many windows open. I need the latest and greatest chips, I think. But my computer doesn't know it's my birthday and therefore is not behaving itself. Not behaving itself. But you guys are still here, right? You guys are still here. That's good. Anyway, it turns out UCLA is, in spite of the California state ban, literally there was a law passed. It was one of these referendums that banned affirmative action from admissions at state universities in California. Remind you, the university we're talking about here is UCLA. And yet, clearly at UCLA, race was being used as a category for admitting. And what the scary part is, that race was being used to admit people. You know, if race is being used to admit people into sociology or gender study or history even, or even philosophy and stuff like that, all right, you know, so kind of, you could argue, so be it. It's terrible, it's awful, we don't like it, but okay, we can live with that. But we are talking about people being admitted into medical school. Medical school. These people are going to have people's lives in their hands. Their decisions will determine life or death. And nobody cares, right? Nobody cares. Much more important for there to be a black. And why? Why did this admissions officer, why was it so important for there to be a black in the class? It's because, even if he was subpar, because black women need to be treated. And the idea is black women can only be treated by blacks doctors, which is racist in and of itself, disgusting, despicable, and really, really horrific. We need more of these whistleblowers to come out and provide kind of, we all know what's going on, but to provide kind of the concrete evidence for this stuff is, I think, super important. Okay, this is going to be rough to do with my I don't know. I think there are too many windows open. Okay, I think the message from the gods of technology is I need to upgrade to a Mac Mini M2 Pro or wait and get the M4, but I need to upgrade. I think I'm stretching the limits of my Mac beyond its capacity, so we're gonna have to figure this out. All right. We will. So one way or the other, either M2 Pro or an M4 is going to be purchased. All right, some foreign policy stuff, and of course we'll get to the Israel Palestine, Israel Gaza issue in a little bit, and everything surrounding that, including we'll talk about Iran and other things. But let's talk for a minute about other stuff going on in the world, because it really does look like the axis of evil, if you will, is really gearing up to create problems, to upset, to stir things up, and I don't think we're looking at expansive wars globally, but we certainly China and Russia are trying to shake things up and take advantage of the world's distraction by Israel, and who knows where they're heading with this. I really don't know. But the reality is that China today surprised the world with an announcement that they're engaging in, one day after the new president of Taiwan was sworn in, they're engaging in military drills, operations, that will involve basically surrounding the island of Taiwan with naval assets, basically mimicking what you would consider as a blockade of the island of Taiwan. Now, they tell us it's just a drill. Don't worry, we're not actually going to invade Taiwan. Yeah, okay. I mean, if they did, is anybody ready? Could anybody respond? Is anybody capable of doing anything? And maybe this is part of what they're testing. But you now have naval assets of the Chinese in basically all around Taiwan, surrounding and trying to dominate the international waters or the non-Taiwanese waters in every direction of Taiwan. So any ship that's going to come to Taiwan is going to have to cross through some area patrolled or where there are Navy drills right now by the Chinese Navy. I mean, this is scary stuff. Who knows where this leads, and who knows? I mean, I assume it's a real drill and it's not just a pretense for an invasion, but I don't know. Who knows? Again, who knows? In addition, it appears that the Chinese are moving assets around the country as part of this so-called drill. They're moving significant medium-range anti-ship missile batteries to the coast in various. All they're saying is various tactical positions around the country. These are the missiles that the U.S. is very worried about in terms of the vulnerability of the U.S. aircraft carriers and other ships. I assume, because I don't know how competent they are, but I assume the U.S. is taking this very seriously and is put its fleet on alert and is ready. Everything's that they're ready and at their. But then you would have assumed Israel had been ready for October 7th, and it wasn't. And maybe the Chinese have learned from this. You would have assumed Ukraine would have been ready for Russia in February of 2023, but it wasn't. Well, no, it's February. So who knows what the Chinese are thinking? So really scary scenario, something to watch. and this movement of missiles on land is worrisome. So it's all kind of a little spooky in terms of what is going on, and not to be left out of this. The Russians last night removed light buoys that delineate the border between Russia and Estonia in the river that separates the two countries. They have announced that they intend to unilaterally change their maritime borders with both Finland and Estonia. In other words, they are going to flex their muscles. They're going to test it out. They're going to check out how serious these countries are. They're going to push the envelope a little bit and see. Finland is a new member of NATO. Is NATO willing to defend the sea boundaries of Finland? How aggressive is NATO willing to be? Why not push it a little bit here? They don't expect NATO to really respond. So all super interesting. And super interesting, right? That both Russia and China are choosing this moment as the world is clearly distracted to flex some muscles and see how the world responds. Again, scary stuff. Of course, this is the same time as Russia still pushing on Ukraine, gaining territory, bombing them day in, day out, night in, night out, I guess. People seem to have forgotten about Ukraine. Nobody seems to really care. But the bad guys, the evil powers out there in the world are active, and they are watching, and they are very, very sensitive to the weakness of the West right now, as expressed by what's going on in Israel, as expressed by the U.S. administration, as expressed by everything else going on. Let's see. All right, a couple of pieces of good news, I guess. A couple of pieces of good news. Yesterday, the House did indeed pass the crypto bill. Now, again, this is not a great bill. This is not a perfect bill. This is better, though, than just letting the SEC loose to make up the regulations as they go along. And this will at least set up some rules of the game for crypto companies. It turned out to pass the House of Representatives with a massive majority, so that a significant number of Democrats actually voted for this, which might send a message to the Senate and maybe even to Biden that this is something worthwhile passing, that this should not just be ignored. We will see, but we will see whether the Senate actually takes it up and presents it. Remember, the Senate is held by Democrats, so Schumer would have to actually propose it, and he will only do it if they convince him that it's somehow in Democrats' self-interest to do it. That is easy to do because there's a lot of money behind this bill, and I'm sure they're throwing around a lot of campaign contribution potentials. But what this means is that rules of the game in terms of crypto will now be put in place that are far less rigorous than what the SEC and the other regulatory agencies were planning to do, are doing anyway. Now, I will say that it's almost guaranteed that any set of regulations like this from the top, any set of regulations like this that are determined by central planners, bureaucrats, congressional staffers, kids who are 22 years old and who are writing bills, because don't forget, congressmen don't do that work. That work is all done by their staffers. I doubt that congressmen even read the bills. They usually just get staffers to summarize it for them, and then they vote one way or the other. But these kids are writing this bill. The probability that this bill is actually good, the probability of this bill that it doesn't create real distortions and ultimately create some kind of financial meltdown, high that they will, create the meltdown. But again, better than the alternative at this point, sadly. We're going to be regulated one way or the other. Crypto is, not me, we. I don't have crypto. It's going to be regulated one way or the other. This might be a better way. Certainly, the industry and those who advocate for crypto seem to think so. All right, the other piece of good news was, where was it? Yeah, I mean, another piece of good news. Here's the headline. This is a good headline. Why progressive district attorneys are losing their grip on the West Coast. Because yesterday I told you about the election for district attorney in Portland. Portland, the most wacky leftist city in the country. Portland. And Portland had elected in like a landslide one of the most progressive DAs in the country not that long ago in was it 2019? And or maybe it was 2020. It was in the midst of the riots in Portland, which were burning down downtown and completely destroyed downtown Portland. And Portland had the worst BLM riots of any city in the country, worse than Chicago. And murder rates in Portland tripled as Portland defunded the police and as this progressive DA refused to prosecute people. Now, I think Portland is wackier than Seattle, or at least was. Anyway, yesterday they held an election for the DA, and a moderate who ran not as a Republican or Democrat, who ran as an independent, and who ran on a tough on crime agenda, tough on crime across the board, won. He got more than 50% of the vote. Again, he beat somebody who in the past, in 2020, got 70+%, around 70% of the vote. And this is a trend on the West Coast in all these leftist bastions that people are just fed up with district attorneys that will not enforce the law, fed up with city councils and mayors who want to defund the police. Indeed, the trend right now in the country overall is to increase funding for police across the board. So that is what people are voting for. That's what cities are doing. There are actually more police in uniform right now. Not true 3-4 years ago, but right now, there are more police in uniform than ever in American history. And by the way, that is why murder rates, at least, and by extension, probably violent crime, but certainly murder rates, are significantly down over the last year and a half. Certainly in 2023 and so far in the beginning of 2024, murder rates around the country are down significantly. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that we have a lot of police out there in the street. Police were funded, the police actually received increased funding, which is all good. There's a limit to the extent to which the American people are willing to tolerate anarchy. We should call it what it is: anarchy. And I think that was reached in 2020. And the wacky left, with everything that is involved with the wacky left, is certainly part of that. All right, I don't want this. I can close. Let's look at this. The guy who I at least wanted to win district attorney in Portland won yesterday. And I told you about this yesterday here before the election actually occurred. All right, let's see. All right, let's talk about plain politics. So the Democrats, you remember a few months ago, there was a bipartisan committee to come up with a solution for the southern border. They came up with a solution that some Republicans were happy with, some Democrats were happy with, and it was going to go for a vote, and it was going to be tied into the Ukraine-Israel foreign policy support bill, right? And then Donald Trump said basically, whoa, you can't do this, Republicans. If you do this, you're giving a win to Biden. And if you do this, you take away, you basically take off my plate the number one issue I have against him. If you, in a sense, quote, solve the problem on the southern border by, I don't know, being tougher or whatever, then that's not good for me, for Donald Trump, for the election. So Republicans basically caved and walked away from the bill. Somehow the Ukraine stuff passed anyway. Well, the Democrats are bringing it back. This time they're bringing it back to the Senate. They're going to have a vote in the Senate because they figure if Republicans vote against it, then Democrats will try to use that as leverage during the elections against the Republicans. Here, we offered a tough on the border bill, and you refused to vote for it. Now, I think the Democrats are deluding themselves. This won't work. People don't think enough to consider that. The fact is that people are terrified by what's going on in the southern border. They're terrified by, the flooding in of immigrants, so-called illegal immigrants or whatever, and they're gonna vote. Those people are gonna vote against Biden, and there's nothing Congress can really do about it. They're just delusional that they bring the bill to the floor, it won't pass, it won't get picked up by the House, and somehow that'll work against the Republicans. Nobody follows the news like that. Nobody knows that that's actually happening. Biden has promised that if this bill does not pass, he will then, through executive orders, sign a bunch of stuff that'll be tough on the border. So it'll be interesting to see if he does that and whether that is enough to kind of calm the American people down so they rethink the election. Because right now, the reality is right now, Trump is running away with this election. It really doesn't look like it's even going to be close. This might be the first election since maybe 2004 in which a Republican wins the popular vote. He is way ahead. He is way ahead of Biden. He is way ahead of Biden in almost all the battleground states. Some of them by big margins, close to double-digit margins. There really isn't much that I think Biden can do to overcome this. The economy, somehow people are going to have to feel richer. Inflation is going to become negative somehow. Prices would drop, and no more immigrants cross the border. That would supposedly make it, I think, improve Biden's condition. But other than that, he's losing right now big time. And that's a huge achievement for Biden. I mean, to be doing this badly against such a weak candidate like Trump. Wow. I mean, and part of this is the fact that he is unbelievably unpopular. Put aside the election. He's just unbelievably unpopular. He's just old. He exudes no confidence. People hate inflation. We talked about this yesterday. People hate inflation, even disproportionately. It doesn't really matter. They hate it. They vote out anybody who is perceived as weak on inflation, and certainly he is perceived as weak on inflation. And it's going to be very difficult for Biden to win. It looks like a good chance that Trump wins the presidency. I think the Republicans this time will retake the Senate. It really looks that way, not by as much as maybe they hoped for, but they probably will retake the Senate. There's a good chance the Democrats take the House, which is what I'm hoping for. I hope the Republicans don't have House, Senate, and the presidency. That would be a unmitigated disaster, as anytime the same party holds all three offices. It's too soon for that. We just don't have good enough politicians for them to have that kind of power. All right, one other thing coming out of Congress, it's possible, there is talk that the House of Representatives is going to invite Netanyahu to address Congress. Now, of course, many on the left are flipping out over this. It might be even that some on the right are flipping out of it. I don't know what the position of Rand Paul or J.D. Vance is regarding Netanyahu addressing Congress. But it does look like the invitation is coming out. It does look like a number of congressmen, people will boycott that. So Congress is trying to, that is kind of in the air in Congress right now. What else do we want to? Yeah, I don't know if you saw the latest craziness out of the Biden administration. I mean, they're really throwing everything at buying votes right now. They're desperate. They're also worried that they're going to lose, so they're trying to rush all their progressive programs in quickly because they're afraid that they're going to lose the elections and they won't have any more opportunities. So all the regulatory agencies are suddenly passing a bunch of new regulations. The FCC, of course, is suing everybody left and right, antitrust lawsuits. Biden, every day now, there is some new plan to forgive student loans, $1 billion here, $7 billion there, $13 billion there. I mean, small change when you consider the deficits, the trillion-dollar, multi-trillion-dollar deficits and debt. But it adds up, and it all goes down to that bottom line of massive amount of debt. One of the things that Biden proposing is that now the federal government subsidize second mortgages. So that Freddie and Fannie, you remember Freddie and Fannie? Remember those organizations that you could argue caused the great financial crisis, and whom both parties in 2009-10 committed absolutely to privatizing and breaking up, and they were taken under in receivership by the government in 2008 because they were bankrupt, and the government said no, we're going to break them up. We are going to not allow this to ever happen again. We're not going to have two big monstrous organizations dominating the mortgage business, and we are going to there was even talk again between Republicans and Democrats about privatizing it. Just to give you an update, because I'm sure you guys don't follow this stuff. I do. 16 years later. It's 16 years later. Really, it is 16 years later. The two entities are still under government receivership. They still have not been privatized. They never will be. They haven't been broken up. They never will be. They are now underwriting, in a sense of buying, more mortgages, a larger percentage of the mortgage market than pretty much ever before. They're bigger, more vulnerable, more potentially losing money. We just don't know because they're under government receivership. And now the government wants Freddie Mac to start purchasing second mortgages. In other words, I don't know if you guys know this, but you guys have not taken enough debt. We want you to become even more indebted than you are. So we are going to, the U.S. government, because of its largesse and because of its benevolence and how much it loves you, we are going to make second mortgages cheaper by providing a secondary market for them. They are going to be bought from the banks, so banks have an incentive to issue them, and they're going to be repackaged and sold, which will lower their price, lower the interest rates that you have to pay, and you can go into greater debt. Aren't you excited by this? I mean, these kind of things are precursors to the next crisis, to the next bubble, to the next default, to the next financial crisis. I mean, there are many things going on right now in this economy that you could argue are precursors to the next default. But it is, Freddie and Fannie are certainly going to be involved in it, given housing. It's not like, by the way, private markets don't provide home equity lines of credit. Second mortgages. They in 2023, if private markets provided $370 billion worth of those kind of loans. Obviously, according to the government, according to our regulators, that is not enough. We need to subsidize even more of that. Biden wants to give direct subsidies to first-time buyers of homes in order to help them out because homes are so expensive, which, again, another scheme at buying votes. It's just nobody learns anything. This is just true of history generally. And I keep saying this, and it always kind of you always go, no, this can't be true, Yaron. You're exaggerating things. But every time I see it over and over again, nobody learns anything from history. And I know that sounds exaggerated because it's nobody in anything, but it really is. Nobody learns, nobody, at least who matters in terms of decision making, nobody learns anything from history. That is the reality. Anyway, Freddie and Fannie combined share of outstanding residential debt in 1990 was 25.7. So they were about a quarter of the market in 1990. By 2010, they were 47% of the market, and they're still just under 50% of the market. So they've doubled in size in terms of their market influence, their position in the market. So, I mean, these are, and I don't have, if you want, at some point, we'll go into what these organizations do, Freddie and Fannie. But just remember, they are under receivership by a government for 16 years. They are a major player in causing the great financial crisis. One of the great promises of both the Bush and the Obama administrations were that they were going to be reformed, privatized. You would expect the Trump administration to do something about them, but the Trump administration, at the end of the day, committed itself to keeping them the way they are. And they are still there, 16 years later, 4 administrations later. Nobody has touched them. It's mind-boggling. If you understand how bad the great financial crisis was and how much we've paid for it, if you understand how, what caused it, listen to my Causes of the Great Financial Crisis course if you want to know why it happened. This is monstrous. One more area in which the world is just, right now, just monstrous. I'm going to skip this story. Let's see. All right, so I talked about this, that Microsoft has this deal with the United Arab Emirates that is going to invest in a AI firm called G42 in the United Arab Emirates. And Microsoft is going to invest a lot of money, and this is partially at the request of the U.S. government. It's going to do so. It turns out that part of this deal involves transfer of some pretty important chip technology to the United Arab Emirates. What? Yeah, I mean, the U.S. is going to transport, just as it's putting restrictions on this technology vis-a-vis the Chinese, it's going to provide companies in the United Arab Emirates with advanced, pretty secretive chip technology, AI chip technology, that partially is responsible for the U.S. companies having the lead that they have over Chinese competition. Let's just give it to the UAE. They're trustworthy. We can trust them. They would never think of selling it to the Chinese or to ISIS or to I don't know whom. I mean, it's the United Arab Emirates. It's Dubai. You ever see the beautiful skyscrapers in Dubai? I mean, how bad could a culture be that builds those? I don't know. What do you say about? I mean, I'm just giving you a string of kind of stuff going on in the world. Yeah, let's skip this. Okay, this is a big story. Another unbelievably depressing story. But this is a big story and a crucial story. Some of you I know. I have many listeners in Canada. Let me just say first, I'm sorry. I'm sorry you're still in Canada. After reading the story that I'm about to tell you about, I probably am not going to visit you guys. If I'm invited to give a talk in Canada, I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to. I don't know if I'm going to. It strikes me as pretty risky right now for somebody like me to visit Canada. And the reason is that Justin Trudeau's Liberal Party introduced earlier this year, and now it looks like it's coming to a vote, a Online Harms Act. They introduced it to Canadian Parliament, where the government will have extensive and explicit authority to regulate, quote, content that foments hatred. But it's not just that they will have the authority to regulate it. You know, right now, Canada has pretty stringent hate crime laws, just like Europe, just like almost every country in Europe does. And even today, you can serve between 2 to 5 years in jail. 2 years if you're, quote, willfully promoting hatred against any identifiable group. Define hatred, by the way. Or 5 years if you are, quote, promoting genocide. By speech. You serve 5 years. Well, that's not good enough. According to this new bill, if you foment hatred, willfully promote hatred against any identifiable group, you could serve 5 years. And if you actually accused or convicted of promoting genocide, you could serve life in prison. Life in prison. Now, in a few minutes, I'm going to talk about Israel and what's going on in Gaza. I think any reasonable person could assume that I am promoting hatred. I am promoting hatred of Hamas. I'm promoting hatred of the Palestinian people who support Hamas, which is most of them. Hatred. I am a hatred promoter. And given my views on the morality of war, given my views on how one should win a war, is it that difficult to imagine somebody accusing me of promoting genocide? I don't care how much you pay me. I'm not going to Canada. Certainly, I'm not going to Canada to give a talk about Israel. I'm not going to land up in jail for that. You can watch me by video, and we can see if Canada can use its extradition treaty with the United States or Puerto Rico to get at me. I mean, can you imagine this? Maybe the Canadian government will block my show from transmission into Canada. I mean, that would be good. I think I'd get a lot of publicity for that. That would definitely increase subscriptions, and maybe get me some a generous super chat donors, right? So this is the bill going through Canada. Now, It's pretty shocking, right? Because you think Canada, Western civilization, pretty much one of its core tenets, one of the core tenets of the West is free speech, is individual rights. Many people, of course, are criticizing this bill, but Trudeau has enough votes, probably, in the Canadian Parliament to have it passed. And the real question is, but wait a second, isn't there like a Canadian Constitution? Isn't there a protection, like the Bill of Rights in America, that protects us from government? Because in my view, there's no doubt that if there wasn't a Bill of Rights in the United States, we would have limitations on free speech. But doesn't Canada have a Bill of Rights? Well, it turns out that not so much. Right? Not so much. It turns out that in Canada, and to a large extent this is true even in Europe, you know, the rights are articulated, rights are there, but they, you know, it's okay to violate them according to the Canadian Constitution if there is a significant public interest to do so. In other words, you know, a quote from the, you know, from their Charter of Rights and Freedoms, that is Canada's, quote, you know, Parliament can put such reasonable limits prescribed by law as can be demonstrably justified in a free and democratic society. Demonstrably justified. By what standard? By the standard of democracy, by the standard of the common good, by the standard of the public interest, by the standard of collectivism, by a collectivistic standard. Canada has no concept of individual rights as inalienable. Now, you know, ultimately neither does the United States, but we pretend we do. And at least on some issues like free speech, we're better at it than maybe on others like property rights. But we at least have something in the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights doesn't have a caveat at the end unless it hurts the public interest. So, you know, Supreme Court justices have to kind of come up with convoluted reasons why they're violating the Bill of Rights. But in Canada, you don't have to come up with the convoluted reasons. You just have to say it's really not in the public interest. In a major Canadian Supreme Court ruling in 1990, the Chief Justice wrote, quote, Parliament has recognized the substantial harm that can flow from hate propaganda. He wrote, the suppression of hate propaganda undeniably muzzles the participation of a few individuals in the democratic process and hence distracts somewhat from free expression values. But the degree of this limitation, not substantial. So in Canada and in Europe, we weigh the benefit of suppressing hate speech versus the fact that some rights are being violated. And we weigh those. I don't know exactly how we weigh them because they're not things, so you know, scales, but the courts weigh them. And they decide based on this weighting. There's no inalienable, unequivocal right to speak. And as a consequence, people can be silenced, even on their own property, even using their own printing press, even using their own means of distribution, even using their own YouTube show, even using their own public forum. They can be silenced. Now, this is spooky. This is, you know, and this is Canada getting worse. This new bill is not in a vacuum. Canada is already a horrible place for free speech. And Canada is taking a big step towards being just a horrific, unthinkable place for free speech. And without free speech, it's hard to imagine that you're really free. It's hard to imagine that any of your other liberties or any of your other rights have any kind of standing. And suddenly you completely lose the ability to protect yourself, to defend yourself, to speak up against stuff. How does the opposition argue against the government? Let's say the opposition disagrees with the government's Israel policy. Can it then be accused of supporting a genocidal government, given that, as we'll get to, the Israeli government is going to be prosecuted by the International Criminal Court for genocide? So it all seems like it all adds up to completely silencing political opposition. Canada, not very far from where I am, but not far from where Jennifer is, just across the border. You know those nice Canadians? You know how Canadians are nice? Wow. Nice, but nasty. Nice, but this is pretty evil stuff. And I don't know. I haven't seen any polls on how popular Trudeau is. He won the last election. I don't know. He doesn't have a majority, but he has a majority if he adds some of the other smaller parties that would support something like this. But I don't know. Is he Prime Minister for life? Is Canada going to stand up against him? Are Canadians going to rebel against this monstrous kind of behavior? Gail, who is in Canada, is Canadian. Are you Canadian? I can't remember. Anyway, Gail says yes. And all quote minority groups are protected in the charter. I wonder what all minority groups. I assume that includes Palestinians, for example. But that does not include the smallest minority of all, the individual. Happy birthday. Thank you, Gail. I appreciate the happy birthday. But yeah, absolutely. And of course, I appreciate the financial support in the Super Chat. But that's exactly it, right? Individual rights are about the individual. The Bill of Rights is about protecting the individual. And when you don't have something like the Bill of Rights, when you don't have a Declaration of Independence, when you don't have a constitution like the United States has, your rights, your life, your liberty is completely at the behest of a bunch of politicians who could be swayed in any direction. Oh, Gail is American. She's American. She emphasizes. She's American first, but not that kind of American first. The original American first. And this is why, in spite of all the problems we have, it's kind of better to live in America than anywhere else. Only because there's still a semblance, a pretense of respect for a Bill of Rights that still at least explicitly protects some of our rights some of the time. And it's so much better than what you have in Europe or what you have in Canada or what you have anywhere else in the world. So I'm still think, in spite of everything, and in spite of my horror at this coming election, I still think that there's no better place to live, not because of any of these disgusting politicians that claim to represent us right now, but because the Founding Fathers were so amazing, and because our founding documents are so good, in spite of their flaws, so good, that even 250 years after the founding and after the writing of the Constitution, there's still so much there. There's still so much that still protects us, that still gives us certain liberties and certain protections and certain freedoms that you couldn't imagine, that just don't exist anywhere else. And it's all because of the founders, not because of any one of these guys. Anybody in Congress today, anybody running for president today, all just horrible. All right. All right, let's see. We've got a few stickers. Let me just run through these. Brian, thank you. Mario just became a member. I want to say something about membership. Let's see. Bree, thank you. And who else? I see a lot of happy birthdays. We'll get to those later. Johnny, thank you. I think I said that earlier. Okay, I think I got all the other ones. Let me just say something about membership. Because, next week on Saturday, I think it's going to be 2 p.m. East Coast time, not this Saturday, the following Saturday. So what is it, June 1st, I think? I'll be doing a members-only show, members only. So you have to be a member, and I'm going to be doing a members-only show on sculpture, on female sculpture. Primarily female nudes, but there might be some that are not so nude, or there's some, it might be some that are ambiguous. Not in terms of whether they're female, but in terms of whether they're nude or not. And let me tell you, I asked my wife to download some of our favorite female sculptures, photos we've taken over the years, also photos from various sources. It's going to be unbelievable. I mean, how beautiful. You're going to be stunned by the quality and the quantity of sculptures, primarily from the 19th century, that I'm going to show on the show. It'll be a little PowerPoint kind of presentation. I still have to figure exactly how to do that. I don't know if I can do that in OBS. I might have to use Zoom. But anyway, we'll figure it out. And just a number of these sculptures that I will show you. And I know some of you already love art, and that's great. But it really is a great opportunity for those of you maybe who don't know much about sculpture, don't know much about art, and don't know what to like, and don't know what's available and what's out there. It's a great opportunity for you to just be exposed to it, hear me talk about it. I'm not I know something about sculpture. I'm not a world expert, but I know something. And so I think you'd really enjoy it. So I encourage you to become members. Jeremy just gifted 5 memberships, so that's 5 new people who are members who can participate in this. Uski gifted 5 memberships earlier in the show, right at the beginning. So we have this membership gifting going on, which is fantastic. They're basically paying your membership fees. So one of the ways in which you guys, if you want to support the show, maybe instead of doing a sticker, you can do gift memberships, and that increases the number of members that they are. Then they can decide if they want to renew the membership. But if you gift it, then we can increase dramatically the number of members on the show. All the people on the chat that I have that are in green are members. And that lets them, that will allow them to come and see the sculpture show. Maybe that'll get them enthusiastic. Maybe they'll contribute more. Maybe they'll sign up for membership themselves. So it's a great way, So and those of you who are suddenly becoming members, you should say thank you. Just saying. Somebody is paying money to your money for you to be a member. That is great. I don't think the membership gifting is, you can't gift it to a particular person, as far as I understand. You can, the algorithm decides who the gift goes to. I asked YouTube, and YouTube claimed that it was random, that there was no targeting, they hear a lot or whatever. It really is random. So, I mean, the danger is that you do the gift and you gift it to somebody like Scott or somebody else obnoxious. But that is a danger. But yes, use the gifting feature when you click on the Super Chat button, you can use the gifting feature to gift 1 or 5 or I think 10 memberships. It's a great way to support the show and get people more engaged. So it works on both dimensions. So please consider doing that. I'd really, really appreciate it. All right. All right. Also, it'd be great if we could hit our target today. It is my birthday. So let's see if we can hit the target today. Oh, look, Kathleen just did just gifted to 5 people. So that's great. Yeah. I mean, if we do enough of this 5 gifting, then Apollo Zeus will get one of them. So just keep doing them. And at some point, Apollo will be the lucky one. I mean, if we're really committed to getting Apollo Zeus a gift, then, this will work. All right, let's see. What did we want to do? Yes, we're going to shift now. To talking about the Middle East, to talking about what's going on in Israel, Iran, Gaza, and the rest of it, including what's the European and American policy around all of this, and this is where we might get some hate speech. I don't know. All right, just notes. I'm not going to say anything about this because I'm sure there'll be plenty of good content about this tomorrow because it's ongoing. It's literally while we are on here right now as we speak. Congress is grilling presidents from UCLA, the same UCLA we just heard about their medical school, UCLA, Rutgers, and Northwestern University. All 3 presidents in front of Congress testifying in a hearing regarding anti-Semitism and the demonstrations on campus. So we will be talking about that probably tomorrow, given that we'll have some good, I'm sure, clips. I'm sure the internet and Twitter will provide us with some really good clips to give us some indication about how these presidents did as compared to Harvard and the others. So far, we've seen a number of the presidents who landed up testifying in front of Congress, lose their jobs. So this is a good way to keep track of who's still in and who's out. Wes just did a $100 super chat sticker to wish me happy birthday. So happy birthday, Wes, and he's coming to Ocon. So fantastic. Thank you, Wes, for Ocon. Tom just did a gift. So thank you, Tom. Donna just did a sticker. Thank you, Donna. So thank you, guys. And slowly we are chipping away. We're very close to being halfway to our goal for the 3-hour show. If we can make it 3 hours. I don't know if we can. It looks like most of the super chats are just birthday wishes. So I don't know how many questions are hidden amongst the happy birthday wishes that you guys are sending. But all right, let's see. I want to start with Iran. Start with talking about Iran and what's going on over there, and maybe some of the challenges that I think the Iranian regime is facing. We'll move from Iran to Israel, but I do want to note something that I talked about. I talked about earlier in the week, and that is the respect the world is giving the Iranian president who died in the helicopter crash. So we talked about the Security Council, the UN Security Council, having a moment and minutes of silence, of observance, and commemoration of the monster from Tehran. Well, the United Nations Conference on Disarmament in Geneva, which is actually chaired by, you won't guess it, this is the Conference on Disarmament in Geneva, is actually chaired by, I wish I had drum roll. I need the drum roll effects. Iran, of course, by Iran. Iran, just like the Human Rights Commission and everything else, the human rights violators are always the ones who are chairing. Anyway, there's video of a session of the UN Conference on Disarmament in Geneva, chaired by the Iranians, also held a moment of silence for the death of the butcher of Tehran. The butcher of Tehran, This is what the Iranians call him. I would call him something a lot worse than that. But the butcher of Tehran is getting respect in the United Nations. Also, interesting, right? That let me just say, John, thank you, John. Glue just came in with $100, and thank you for the happy birthday. I appreciate it. Thank you. Here's a headline for you, right? I mean, just in case you thought that maybe now after everything that's happened, the United States has realized maybe not a good idea to be negotiating with Iran, that a deal with a monstrous regime like Iran was not worth anything, that Iran must be defeated, not negotiated with. Well, no. It turns out that secret Iran-U.S. talks on Gaza war, Israel, U.S. and Iran were negotiating around this, were undermined by Raisi, the president of Iran's death. So the Biden administration, and this, by the way, was true of Trump administration as well, whatever you think is happening, whatever you assume is happening, let me tell you, there is constant backroom negotiations happening. Constant. This was between the Iranians and the U.S. Donald Trump, if you remember, withdrew from the deal with Iran that was struck between the U.S. and Iran during the Biden administration. But all through his administration, there were secret negotiations in the background to cut a better deal, to make a better deal, a Trump deal, the best deal maker in the world kind of deal. It wasn't like, no, we can't deal with the Iranians, we need to destroy their nuclear program. No. It was, no, Obama cut a bad deal, I'm gonna cut a good deal. Anyway, now that Biden's in the White House, Biden has constantly, for the last 4 years, been trying to negotiate a deal, 3.5 years, to negotiate a deal with Iran. Let me be very clear. The only deal the Iranians will understand is a bunker-busting bomb in their nuclear, that eradicates and finishes off their nuclear facilities, and maybe another bunker-busting bomb, on the supreme leader's office, home, bunker where he lives. And those two bombs would get the Iranians to a proper negotiating mood, I think. But I can't say that, right? I might be accused of who knows what. So, yes, it is absolutely the case that negotiations are going on. Nothing's going to stop them. In this case, the negotiations are in Oman. But there are plenty of places around the world where you can negotiate with the Iranians. The Iranians are never going to not negotiate. At the same time, Tom just gifted a Yaron Brook membership, so thank you, Tom. So yeah, I think we're growing membership in the Yaron Brook Show dramatically and significantly today. Hopefully, all of you who are being gifted memberships, all of you who are receiving the gifts, will actually sign up as members and stay members. I think you can sign up for like $4.99 or $5.99 or something like that. So please consider signing up once this membership expires and sustaining your membership as on the Yaron Brook Show. The reality is, though, at the same time, is that the Iranian regime is in big trouble. The population hates the current regime. It hates them because the girls are forced to wear hijabs or to cover their hair or determine what kind of clothes they can wear. At best, you could argue that a vast majority of the population is indifferent. It's not like they're willing to go out and have a revolution, but they don't like this regime. There's only a small minority still, maybe 30%, that are willing to fight it. But generally, they're not. Nobody likes this regime. Very few people like this regime. In the latest vote recently, in an election in Iran, only 41% of eligible voters cast a vote. The lowest percentage since the beginning of since the revolution in 1979. There's no point in them voting because all the candidates are equally evil. Part of the disillusionment is about dress and religion, but also inflation is at about 35%. I mean, we all complain when it's at 4 or 5%. Theirs is at 35%. The Iranian currency has plummeted, which has made importing anything from outside of Iran unbelievably expensive. The government of Raisi, of the former president, cut back on food and fuel subsidies. So all of those are significant more expensive, and they continue to be more expensive, right? You know, they're trapped economically because nothing good is going to happen. It's not like anybody in government proposing some real reforms. The government has had to, because of shortages of money, had to cut back on health, education, and welfare. And basically, people are poor, people are struggling, and they don't see a future. There's no out of this. There's no way to get out. They're kind of stuck. This regime does not allow for any kind of opposition, for discussion, for debate. This is this is authoritarianism. And the Iranian regime is one of the most authoritarian, one of the most totalitarian regimes in the world today. And therefore, internally, they are suffering dramatically. They were also, and the Iranians know this, the Iranian people know this, they were completely humiliated by the Israelis last month. They fired 300 ballistic missiles and drones at Israel. And basically, you know, none of them landed. I mean, a few landed, but did no damage. One Arab girl sadly was injured. That's the one damage. I mean, it's significant, but it's one girl. She was Arab, a Bedouin. Other than that, nothing. No injuries, no infrastructure, nothing. 300 all knocked out. That's completely humiliating to this regime. The regime is struggling. The regime is weak. The regime is ever smaller, like all totalitarian, authoritarian regimes. What happens? They kill off. And they kill off any opposition, even when it's minor opposition from within. So, for example, past presidents of Iran, all fundamentalist Muslims, Hassan Rouhani, Mohammad Ahmadinejad, Mohammad Khatami, Hashemi Rafsanjani, all really crazy, committed Islamic nuts. They've all been sidelined. They've been silenced. They've been denied foreign travel. And they've been prevented from running for office again. Why? Because there's some minor disagreement between them and the supreme leader who rules everybody. The circle of people around the supreme leader is smaller and smaller by the day. The number of people actually controlling Iran is small, and it's primarily the military. Not the military, but the Revolutionary Guard that really has the power in Iran. They get their moral legitimacy from the supreme leader, but they are the ones who control the streets. They're the ones who provide the threat to the opposition and to the people demonstrating, and therefore they are the ones that actually control it all. Right, Jay just donated a membership, and he says he doesn't see how to, direct it. I don't think you can. I don't think you can direct it. Sadly, I think these are all random, and I don't see who got it. Usually, it pops up who received the membership, and in your case, I don't see who got it. It's not clear. Anyway, yeah, I don't. Oh, Jay is just saying, I'll donate a membership. But it's completely random who gets it. Anyway, none of this is going to get any better. Raisi, who died, his death is significant in the sense that Raisi was from the generation of Khomeini, was from the generation who was super conservative and super committed. He was one of the people who was probably going to be the replacement for Khamenei. This really disrupts the internal machinations of this regime. And this is a real opportunity. If anybody had the balls, if anybody had the guts to actually go and get rid of them, this is now the opportunity. They've probably never been weaker. Since the revolution in 1979, Iran has probably never been in a weaker position than they are right now. The economy's in tatters, their military is questionable, and the inner circle is tiny, and they're vulnerable. They're vulnerable. And if somebody could really support the opposition, if somebody could give them a little bit of a nudge, if somebody could give them a little bit of military cover, you could really see something significant happening in Iran. But let me tell you, consistent with my optimistic sentiment today, nothing going to happen. Nothing going to happen. Because the West is, cowardly is way too nice of a term. Way too nice of a term. And maybe the best expression of this, and this moves us to Israel, Gaza, maybe the best expression of just how morally bankrupt, corrupt, cowardly, disgusting, despicable, horrific the West has become is the combination this week of the ICC, the International Criminal Court, a prosecutor basically saying that they are asking for arrest warrants against the Israeli Defense Secretary and Prime Minister, at the same time as the leaders of Hamas, 3 leaders of Hamas, so maybe making that moral equivalency. And the second aspect of this is 3 significant European countries announcing that they are recognizing a Palestinian state. They are recognizing a fiction. They are recognizing something that doesn't exist. But basically, all the recognition means is a criticism, is a undermining of the moral position Israel is in. And I know nobody believes me when I say put it this way, but as Israel is fighting for its survival, because it is. There is nothing else, right? These people, the Hamas and many of the Palestinians, even ones not affiliated with Hamas, would like nothing better than to do an October 7th every day until they wipe Israel off the face of the earth. And yet, they're being rewarded for an October 7th. They're being patted on the back. They're being encouraged to seek from the river to the sea by Ireland, Spain, and Norway. I don't know if we have any Norwegians here, but shame on you. Not the Norwegians here, because they probably don't support this government, but the government, the Norwegian government. All 3 countries have announced that they now recognize the existence of a Palestinian state. Of course, a fictitious one doesn't exist. It's not there. There's no borders. There's no government. The last time the Palestinians had an election was 2005-6. We know how that ended, with Hamas winning. And the president of the Palestinian Authority his term expired years ago, and he's still there. Still there. So the idea of making a moral equivalency between Israel and the Palestinians, the idea of making a moral equivalency between Israel and a fictitious so-called Palestinian state, this is the moral issue of the day. this is a litmus test. I mean, anybody who supports the Palestinians today is morally depraved. If you support Palestine, the Palestinians, the Palestinian state, however you want to call it, but basically Hamas, over Israel, you're morally corrupt, morally depraved, and really, I don't know that there is a coming back from that. Your mind is fried if you have one. If you cannot see the difference. If the European countries are going to stand by the International Criminal Court after what it did this week, and a number of countries have already announced that they will respect whatever the ICC decides, that they stand by its independence, that they will not intervene. Even Germany has taken that position. To the credit of the Conservative Party in the UK, they have not. They said they would not arrest Netanyahu if he came to the UK. But the Labour Party, which is likely to win an election on July 4th and become the British government, the Labour Party in England, has said, no, no, no. The ICC, we will respect whatever they decide. I mean, that is just, it's despicable. Israel is the only country, I think ever, that because it's Jewish, because it's a Jewish country, that is going to be prosecuted by the ICC for defending itself, for standing up against monstrosity. The Israeli military has done more than any military in human history, literally, even more than the American military. And I'm no fan of this, but this is a reality. Has done more than any military in human history to protect civilian casualties. And yet, it is being labeled as equally evil as Hamas. You know, the evil of this, and the fact that this is what the West has come to, the fact that this is what the West is now, is just so horrific. The reality is that almost nobody is standing up against it. To the Biden administration's credit, they are literally, and this is to their credit, they're literally threatening the ICC with sanctions against individuals in the ICC if they actually go through with this. That's a pretty bold stance. That's a pretty bold stance. I wonder, and I don't know what Trump would do, but that's about as strong support of Israel as you can get vis-a-vis this issue. Other issues, they're just horrible with regard to it. This ICC thing, I mean, this is the West committing suicide. And not supporting Israel in this case is the West committing suicide. Now, luckily, only 3 European countries have announced that they recognize the Palestinian state. I'm not sure if the others will follow. I will give Geert Wilders credit, although I find him just unpleasant, and I disagree with him on a lot of things. But Geert Wilders was like, no, Israel is right, the Palestinians are wrong, and I mean, he was pretty tough on this and pretty good on this, so good for him. I think it primarily is motivated by his hatred of Islam, but there's reason to hate Islam. So that's not a bad reason. Anyway, to date, 139 countries around the world have formally recognized a Palestinian state. 139. Now, most of those, 136 probably, I don't really care that much about. Who cares? But these 3, Ireland, Spain, and Norway, pretty shocking, right? Now, there are a few others, surprisingly. Hungary, Poland, Romania, Czech Republic, Slovakia, and Bulgaria also recognized a Palestinian state. Sweden, Cyprus, and Malta recognize the Palestinian state. But what makes these three particularly horrific, is that these three did it after October 7th. These three have done it while Israel is fighting for its survival, while Israel is fighting to make sure that October 7th don't happen again. Now, to remind the world, and I think Israel did this on purpose, given these declarations and European sympathy towards the Palestinians, Israel released two videos the last couple of days to remind the world of what happened October 7th. Sadly, one of the videos is censored. They cut out the most egregious parts of it, which I think is unfortunate. People should see what actually happened. People should see the raw brutality of it. People should see everything. The first video they released yesterday, I don't know if you've seen this already. I have, but it is a video of Hamas fighters on October 7th capturing 5 Israeli female soldiers who were all out of uniform. They're civilians, so they were probably off duty. And they clearly, at least 2 of them have been beaten because they've got blood streaming on their face. The Hamas explicitly are telling them they will be raped and that they would all look good pregnant. So you can just imagine what that means. All 5 of them are treated brutally and then dragged into jeeps and driven into Gaza. And they are some of these 5 girls, and these are girls, they're all 19 years old. These are some of the hostages that are being held in Gaza right now. You can find this video. It's all over Twitter if you want to see it. But what's interesting is all the clips that have been taken out. Maybe clips of rape, maybe clips of beatings. But it does clearly look like rape was involved. There's a section of it that shows the Hamas fighters kneeling down and praying. Don't forget that Hamas is an Islamist organization, that Islam is at the core of their belief, that this is the religion of peace, this is the religion of brotherly love, that they are manifesting in their behavior. I can't even imagine what these girls have gone through over the last 7 months. I can't even imagine why Israel is taking so long to either crush completely the people who did this or liberate them or something. 7 months they've been in captivity, just a mile away, like just over there. It's not like it's far. It's not like it's logistically difficult. I don't know. I mean, I know I didn't expect much of the Israeli government and the military, but then I get even more disappointed. It's tough. Oh, look, Apollo Zeus just became a member. That is great, Apollo. I'm glad you became a member. Now you can participate on the show a week from Saturday. So that was one video. You can go watch it. It's not pleasant, particularly when you realize how young these girls are and you realize what's really going on and when you realize what you're not being shown. What you're not being shown. I just think, and by the way, this is all filmed by Hamas, by the Hamas members who were there. And this video was captured by Israeli troops from them. This is not hidden camera. This is not Israel producing this video. This is a video Hamas produced. Happy to produce videos. I really do think Israel should make public. By the way, this video was made public after the girl's parents. Just imagine this. Just imagine being a parent of one of these 19-year-old girls. It's almost easier if they'd been killed. Because imagine being a parent and living with the thought of what they're going through. Living with the thought of them being abused in captivity for 7 months. Anyway, the families of these girls were the ones who agreed or argued to release this video. It takes a lot of courage for them to have their daughters' faces, bodies splashed across the internet in this kind of context. And it's just heart-wrenching. That was a video released yesterday. Another video was released this morning by the Israelis. This video is of a young Hamas fighter in captivity who was captured by the Israelis, testifying to what he did on October 7th. In particular, he is testifying in this video that he was there with his father and his cousin. They had captured an Israeli woman, a young woman. The father raped her. Then the son raped her. Then the cousin raped her. And as they were leaving, the father killed her. I mean, that just sends, just chills down my spine. I don't know about your spines. I hope it sends chills down your spines, because otherwise I don't know what you guys are. So this is Hamas operative admitting all this. Hamas fighter admitting all this. Young guy, looks completely normal. You couldn't tell he's a monster from the outside. He's talking about this in front of a camera. You could argue, and I'm sure somebody will, that he's being coerced to do it. Yeah, I'm sure. And somebody posted this, shame on you, Ireland, Spain, and Norway, for supporting these rabid animals. Because that's exactly what they are doing. They are supporting this animalistic, barbaric, subhuman behavior. And by the way, let's just remember, this is supported by the Palestinian population. This is supported by the Palestinian population. This is not one or two crazies. These are not psychopaths specifically trained to go rape and pillage. It's just people off the street. This is what the Palestinians have become. This is what their ideology of Islamism and just hatred have driven them to. These are people now, right now, you want to give them a state? These are people that right now, after all this information comes out, these are the people you want to reward by acknowledging the legitimate claim to a state? Spain, Norway, Ireland, shame on you is way too moderate. Way too moderate. It's just, yeah. These are savages. And they should be treated like savages. And that means, right, that they should not be rewarded, that as many of them, those who continue to fight should be killed. The rest should be incarcerated suddenly, if they committed these atrocities, they should be incarcerated for life. Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at Twitter, and under the video of this guy saying what he says, there's already a bunch of things about, yeah, this is just staged. Israel's making this up. They coerced him into saying it. It's not real. Even though the Hamas filmed it themselves and displayed this to the world. They were uploading it to Telegram while it was happening. While it was happening. It was being uploaded to the world. They weren't ashamed of it. They weren't running away from it. But yet they will have apologists in the West justifying everything that they did, making it up. Oh no, October 7th wasn't that bad. It's all an Israeli conspiracy theory. The Israelis have actually killed their own people. It wasn't Hamas. And there was no rape. How long did it take the UN to recognize that there was rape? Like months before they were willing to recognize. And don't tell me after all this that there's no anti-Semitism going on here. Because nobody would do this to any other country. I literally do not believe that there is any other country in the world where this would happen to them and this is the way the world would respond. Nowhere on planet Earth. This is Israel. This is a Jewish state. It is also a successful state. And as such, it is doubly hated. The successful Jews, how dare them? Jews should be weak, subservient, pathetic. Then we'll like them. Successful? Strong? No. All right. Let's see. Two other elements of stories here that I want to talk about, I think. There's two. What is this one? Yeah. So if you remember, the United States built a pier off the coast of Gaza in order to supply Gaza with food, because we know that in time of war, and when Israel is fighting this war against these monsters, it is the most important thing to do. The most important thing to do is to supply food to your enemy, is to supply aid to your enemy. So the United States built this pier. By the way, the people who attacked the pier, and there were a number of attacks while they were building it, were Hamas. Hamas had no interest in the United States building this pier. Hamas doesn't want food supplies to be supplied to the Gazan people. Hamas wants the Gazan people to starve because that makes for good PR. That makes for good public relations. And I'm not being cynical here. These are the same people who would rape girls over and over again. These are the same people who won't let aid to their own people because they want their people to starve, because that'll make great pictures and that'll get the world on their side against Israel. So they tried to stop the United States from building this pier. The U.S., by the way, has committed not to using its troops to deliver the aid, not to putting boots on the ground in the delivery of aid. And yet, the United States has now put an anti-missile battery on this float, on this pier. Why would they do that? Because Hamas continues to threaten to blow this pier up and to stop aid from coming in to Gaza. And again, this is a story nobody's reporting on. Why would America put an anti-missile battery on the pier to protect the pier? From whom? Not from the Israelis. From whom? From Hamas, that doesn't want its own people to get aid. It's, as Enric says in the chat, this is a cult of death. A cult of death. Anyway, it turns out that about 569 metric tons of aid have already passed through this floating pier. and that exactly none of it has actually been distributed to Palestinians. So the idea is that the aid would reach the pier, it would be driven to UN facilities, and then the UN would distribute the aid. Well, two things are happening. One, Palestinians are attacking the trucks as they leave the pier and stealing the aid. And since there are no troops on the ground, there are no American boots on the ground, the Americans are not going to protect the convoys of aid trucks, and therefore they get looted. Second thing that is happening is the aid might get to the UN facilities, but the UN is not actually actively distributing it because they're afraid and they don't know how. And it's just all bogged down. The whole thing is bogged down. I think today I read somewhere that the first amount of aid was actually distributed properly. And in the meantime, I have to admit, I have not yet seen one single photo of a Palestinian actually starving. I did see a news story today about the horrors in Gaza with a little girl, cute little girl, carrying two empty, like, milk jugs, plastic containers. But she looks kind of chubby. Doesn't look starving, even though she's barefoot and everything's destroyed around her, but starvation doesn't look like it's the thing. And yet, it doesn't stop everybody from accusing Israel of genocide, accusing Israel of destruction, accusing Israel of famine, starving the Palestinians to death. Truly, I mean, I don't know, truly stunning, I think, that this is the evil of the West in facilitating this, sanctioning this, giving a thumbs up to this, funding this, funding a cult of death, facilitating the actions and the behavior of a cult of death, and not siding unequivocally with Israel, and not giving Israel a green light to do whatever it deems necessary for its own defense, for its own protection. Pretty sad, pretty sad. Finally, I guess on the good news side, Israel is entering Rafah. I mean, one of the, I don't know, I thought of doing a whole show on this, but I don't know that I have much more to say than I'm going to say now. It is unbelievable to me how incompetent military analysts in the West, and particularly in the United States, are. Both analysts who belong to the government and analysts who seem to be independent and work for the networks of whoever. How many times were we told that if Israel went into Rafah, it would be an unmitigated disaster? How many times were we told that Israel could not evacuate 1 million people out of Rafah without there being just a humanitarian catastrophe? Now, this is only the latest in these kind of exaggerated, nonsensical claims. When Israel was going to go into Gaza for the first time, how many times did we hear, oh my God, Israel's going to take massive casualties. This is urban warfare. They don't know what they're doing. The Hamas are ready for them. They've got traps. They booby-trapped everything. Israelis are going to die left and right. They shouldn't go into Gaza. It's too dangerous. And it's going to take them years. Well, Israel went into Gaza. Casualties were higher than they should be, but they're way lower than any of these military experts expected. Israel has defeated Hamas. I mean, I think it's way too slow the way they've done it, but compared to the expectations of the so-called military experts it's been fast, effective, with low casualties. And now with Rafah, you can't go in, can't evacuate. Thousands of civilians will die. Well, thousands did die, but the risk was that tens, hundreds of thousands would die. The reality is that fewer civilians have died in this war than than in any other urban warfare type war. When you take it as a percentage of bombs dropped, militants killed. The numbers, by the way, that you get out of the Palestinian Health Authority are just bogus numbers. They make them up. There's just no truth to those numbers. A number of people now have done analysis of it. It's just not true. And those numbers are pretty low, but the real numbers are much lower. And now it turns out that about 1 million people have been evacuated from Rafah. They're in tent cities all over the Gaza Strip. And Israel is this morning started a major operation into the center of Rafah. So they are going to take Rafah. Israel already occupies 70% of what's called the Philadelphia axis, which is the border between Gaza and Egypt. Israel controls about 70% of that. Hopefully, within a few days, they will control 100% of it, all the way to the Mediterranean. And they're going to go into Rafah, and there will be casualties, and there will be some civilian casualties, but nothing will come even close to what all the fearmongers, the ignorant military experts. And these military experts were wrong. Every single conflict that I have seen where you get these military experts on TV, they've been wrong. Certainly on Ukraine and certainly in Gaza, they just don't know what they're talking about. And it's not that I'm so brilliant when it comes to military analysis. I've been better than they have, significantly better. And that says something about them more than about me in terms of how pathetic they really are. All right. I mean, that's really all I have to say. Let me see if there was any other stuff. There was other stuff. By the way, Israel has recalled their ambassadors from Ireland, Norway, and Spain for consultations. They brought them in. The ambassadors of those countries in Israel have been brought in to the foreign policy ministry, and they've been yelled at. None of that will make any difference. All the while, as we know, the United States is holding these secret meetings with the Iranian foreign minister, foreign ministry, and they just want all this to go away, and they really want peace. And God, it's just sickening, stomach churning. So there we have it. And I really do think the attitude towards this will tell you a lot about what kind of person you are, and will tell the rest of us what kind of person you are. So it's very, very, revealing, if you will. Very revealing. All right, let us turn to the Super Chat questions. I'll also just mention that we are what was I going to say? Anyway, we're going to turn to the Super Chat questions. We're about $180 still short of target. So, please consider this on my birthday, supporting the show and helping us get to a target, maybe even exceeding it. It would be a nice birthday present, gift if we made it to, I don't know, more than $750. That would be really, really cool. You can use the sticker to support the show. You can ask a question with the Super Chat. And of course, you can become a monthly supporter. you can become a monthly supporter of the Yaron Brook Show on Patreon and on yaronbrookshow.com/membership, which is through PayPal. Let's see, what else did I want to let you know? I think that's pretty much it. Let me just go through some of these that are just happy birthday wishes. Enric says, happy birthday, enjoy your day. Thank you, Enric. Catherine says, happy birthday, and many more. Thank you, Catherine. Sandy, thank you, Sandy. Thank you, Adam says, happy birthday to you. I'm skipping the ones that have happy birthday and then a question. I'm just kind of clearing it out from the people who just said happy birthday. Fred Hopper says happy birthday. Thank you, Fred Hopper. Rafael says happy birthday. Thank you. Lewis, thank you, Lewis. Really appreciate it. Kim, thank you. Let every day be your happy birthday. You're on. Nevfel, thank you, Nevfel. So Paul asks, how come I am not green? I've been a $100 contributor for months. Because I can't integrate the different systems, right? So if you're a $100 supporter on Patreon, on PayPal, which I prefer, and you don't get credit for that in YouTube. YouTube, I can't connect the two. And I don't have control over who becomes green. So in order to become green, you have to literally go into YouTube and become a member. Now, membership in YouTube are low, and I've kept the amounts low because YouTube keeps a lot of the money. So if you become a member. Oh, Remo just got gifted a membership from Apollo Zeus. That's a home run, Apollo, because Remo's a pretty loyal member of this community, so that's great. So I can't integrate them. I wish I could. I wish I had one platform where you could get all the perks off of one place, but it's like all over the place. And one day they'll figure out how to integrate all this, or one day I'll just drop everything and move to one platform. But at this point, if you want to be green, Paul, you're going to have to become a member here. Let's see. Robert Nacier said, YBS Freedom Sticker Avalanche. Sticker Avalanche would be cool. Chris says, happy birthday. Thank you, Chris. WCZN says, happy birthday. May it be the best birth month. Thank you, WCZN. All right, I think we got all the pure happy birthdays kind of cleared out. Alejandro, did I miss Alejandro? Alejandro also says, happy birthday. Thank you, Alejandro. And okay, so now we'll take questions. Okay, so we chipped away at the 180. We're now at 157. So should be doable. We've got an hour and 10 minutes to get to the 750 mark. And again, you don't have to ask a question. You can just make a straight what do you call it? Straight contribution. With a sticker, just a happy birthday works as well. All right, let's see what is going on here. All right, first question for Jennifer. Jennifer says, I wonder if the standards for an MD board certification are still the same. My doctor dad always said the best physicians are the board certified ones. I don't know, but I really do believe that, God, anybody can pretty much pass a test. They can study. There's special ways to study for any particular test, the guides, the tutors, all kinds of things. And I'm much more concerned about the quality of the people who go into medical school and then are in medical school over long periods of time. And you trust that. You trust that they're getting the best education in the world and they're being exposed to great doctors who work and teach at these great medical schools and at great hospitals, and that they're really tested and they're pushed and they're challenged, but that they're coming in super smart. I want my doctor to be off the charts smart. I don't care, what race he is or where he comes from. The guy who's cut me open now twice and done one of the major surgeries on my back, and one of them, again, major surgeries on my back, was a Egyptian, right? Born in Egypt and raised in the U.S. Great guy. We became really super friendly, and he's super smart, young, ambitious. He and that's what I like. I like young, ambitious, experienced doctors. That's what I want. Young, ambitious, off the charts, smart, and and experienced, which is rare. Young and experienced, right? I think old doctors become way too conservative, and they just do what they know how to do. I think as you get older, it's just easier, and I should know because I just got older. It's easier to just do what you've always done. It's easier to do what you know what to do. Learning new tricks, teaching an old dog new tricks is hard. I certainly prefer young, super smart, ambitious, and experienced doctors. That is the profile for me. Probably 40s. 40s is good. Like late 30s and 40s. Don't want them early 30s too inexperienced. I don't want them in the 50s getting a little conservative. Thank you, Jennifer. Michael. Whoops, what did I do? Are people aware of their jealous or envious motivations? Or do they only recognize the hate and anger they're experiencing and blame the other person or group? I think mostly they're not explicitly aware of the jealousy and envious. It takes some introspection. It takes some self-knowledge, knowledge of self, to really be connected and aware of where your emotions are actually coming from. And that is I think a lot of people are not aware of that. So I think most of them, if they introspected, it's right there. So to the extent that they're not aware of it, it's because they're not looking for explanations. They're not introspecting. They're not thinking about it. This is not hard, right? This is not rocket science to figure out what is actually going on and why you are the way you are. Certainly it's a lack of honesty, right? It's a lack of them not knowing is just evasion. Michael also says, "Happy birthday. When are you doing a show on Ayn Rand's Missing Link essay? I was really looking forward to that one." I will. There's a bunch of stuff I need to clear out, but there always seems to be a bunch of stuff I clear out. I also owe you guys all those reviews. I know. I need to get this Peterson course that I'm doing next week out of the way. I then have Ocon. So my schedule really opens up after Ocon, I think. That's my expectation. July is wide open, right? July is wide open. So my expectation is that a lot of the things I promised, I'm just gonna get it out in July, right? I'm not traveling, at least as of right now. I don't have anything in my head. I don't have other things I have to plan, prepare, do. So I'm fully devoted to this show in July. And that's where I plan to do all the music reviews, the movie reviews, the show reviews, the short story review, the painting review. I've got them all in a list, and they're all ready to go. But I expect July. I leave for Europe for a 2-month trip, and I'll be doing shows while I'm there, so don't worry. August 5th, and I want to get them all done by August 5th, including Missing Link. One of the things I want to do. Tana says, "Happy birthday, Yaron. Thanks for being a voice of reason and individualism in this world." I appreciate that, Tana. Thank you for listening and supporting the show. Just another reminder, just a little nudge. Deborah just did a sticker. Thank you, Deborah, for $2. If everybody right now did a sticker for $2, we'd reach our goal. So just value for value. This show exists because of support from listeners like you. It couldn't without the support from listeners like you. Time is money. My time is money. So I would do other things if this did not pay the bills. So this is really necessary for paying the bills. So, please think about, consider offering a value for whatever value you receive from the show. And I have targets for every show, about $250 an hour, that I think are fairly reasonable for the Super Chat. But if that's not your thing, or if you're listening not live, please consider making a monthly contribution. Just getting on, you can do it for $2, $5, or you can do it all the way to $1,000. But please consider supporting the show in one of those ways. Right now, of course, Super Chat. We're all here right now. And I'm here to, you're getting a lot. I'm producing a lot of content. A lot of content. Somewhere between 10 to 15 hours of content a week. And it doesn't include some stuff that I do on Saturdays and a show on Sundays once in a while and a member show. And so, 10 to 15 hours a week, that is a lot of content. Very few people are producing that kind of content, that quantity of content on a regular basis on the internet. All right. Apollo Zeus, thank you for the happy birthday wishes. Kathleen's, thank you for the sticker. Let us keep chipping away at this goal for this show for today. All right, I see a bunch of people have left when I shifted to questions after I talked about Israel. All right, Andy says, happy birthday, throwing in a request for a show on the Iranian Revolution. How the hell did a semi-modern state turn into a medieval theocracy? Boggles the mind. That is a great idea, great topic. I'll just say it. If anybody wants to sponsor that show, a show dedicated to the history of Iran, in a sense, and the history of the Iranian Revolution in particular, but what led up to it and how it got to that point. Sponsorship shows, sponsorships are $1,000. So if somebody's really willing to back Andy's idea up with a dollar sponsorship, that would be terrific. But I am copying it over to my list of show topics, just in case I might do it anyway, even if somebody doesn't sponsor it. Oh, by the way, I do have a question here. Somebody sent me $50 for this question. Samantha Romero sent this question in by PayPal. So you can ask questions by PayPal or by email. She made the contribution by PayPal and then emailed me this question. So this is the question. She says, this question is inspired by the show The Three-Body Problem and the threat of those aliens arriving 400 years in the future. My objectivist friends and I were trying to talk through this question, but we haven't come to a satisfactory answer. The unprovoked initiation of force is immoral. However, force can be provoked by and therefore used against individuals who violate the rights of other individuals. But what about potentials? The unborn do not have rights. That's right. If a man is setting up a nuclear bomb to blow up the earth in 400 years, why can't we use force to stop him? How can we conceive of the bomb as threatening the rights of currently living individuals? How can we conceive of the bomb as threatening the rights of currently living individuals? Or is there some other way to think about this because it threatens the life of future humans? Thank you, Samantha. I mean, that is, I've never thought of that question, so it is an interesting question. So let's try to see what's going on here. So the argument is, look, when it comes to abortion, we say the unborn is just a potential human being. It's not a human being now, so it can be disposed of, right? It can be killed. It is life, after all, but it can be killed because it's not a human being. It doesn't have individual rights protecting it. You cannot be prosecuted under the rule of law because of that. Human beings 400 years from now do not yet exist. They are only potentials. So if I'm doing something today that threatens human beings 400 years from now, I'm just threatening a potential. I'm not threatening an actuality. And shouldn't that potential in the future be viewed as the same as a fetus? And I have two approaches to this. One is, I don't think the two are the same. When the bomb goes off in 400 years, the people there are not potentials. The people there are real. Now, the potential right now, but the existence of people in 400 years is real. It's not the same as a woman saying, I don't want to have this baby. And it doesn't have rights. It's just a potentiality in the future, and therefore I'm doing something to protect my rights in getting rid of this baby. That is a completely different category of question vis-a-vis, let's make it not 400 years. Why not make it, I don't know, make it 100 years. Nobody's going to be alive in 100 years that's alive today, right? Or 110 or 120 years, whatever it is. But we do know people will be alive. People will die. Not potentials will die. He's not killing potentials. When it actually happens, he's killing real people. And therefore, he is, violating rights. He will be, the rights are going to be violated in 400 years. Not of the fetuses, but of real people. There. I'm trying to think if there's an equivalent. It would be like saying it's okay to kill adults because they were once fetuses, and when they were fetuses, they were potential. Now they're not a potential, but then they were potential, so it's okay to kill them now. No. So, by the very fact that he will be killing people, that he set it up to automatically kill people, he is violating rights. But I think the more important argument, the bigger argument is this. If somebody sets up an atomic bomb to blow up whatever 400 years from now, he is a threat to me right now. He is a threat to me today. He is manifesting, he is expressing that he cares not about human life. And he is willing to kill vast numbers of people. How do I know that in 5 minutes he won't change his mind and set the atomic bomb to kill me today? How do I know that he won't go on some homicidal rampage and kill a bunch of people? He is a proven threat by creating this, machine that kills in 400 years. So he's a threat to me now. He maybe hasn't killed anybody yet, can't maybe try him for murder, but you can try him for threatening, and you can try him for being a threat. He should be removed from society. He doesn't care for human life, and he is, by his very existence, by his very setting that atomic bomb for 400 years from now, a threat to everybody alive today. All right, I hope that answers the questions satisfactorily. I'd be curious if you send me an email letting me know if it did or not, or if you have any follow-ups. All right, thank you, and thank you for the $50 question. Really appreciate it. All right, let's see. We got another couple of happy birthdays. Linda says, happy birthday, and Iron Meerkat says, happy birthday. You're on PS Gaza must be destroyed. Thank you, Iron Meerkat. And as you know, I basically agree with you. All right, let's go to Andrew. Andrew says, altruism lobotomizes people. Those under its influence cannot think rationally. They try to think through their emotions. Logic would yield different conclusions. Thoughts on the effects of altruism on cognitive functioning. Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you. I think that altruism, thinking needs to have a purpose. Thinking cannot exist in a vacuum, free, if you will, of purpose. Purpose is part of thinking. I'm thinking for what? And if my thinking is for the purpose of sacrifice, for the purpose of others, for the purpose of self-denial, the outcome of that is going to be very, very different. And indeed, you could argue that it's not going to be rational because it's not going to be attached to reality. Can you really think rationally when the context is others? Well, why should I even trust my mind? Who am I to decide what's good? I mean, altruism undermines your own mind, your own confidence, your own self-esteem, and therefore your own capacity to reason rationally about the world. It tells you it doesn't matter what reality says. What matters is what other people need. Need is not dictated by reason. Need is dictated by emotion, by consensus, by other people, but not by reason. So it undermines every aspect of rationality and thinking. Oh, happy birthday, Yaron. I seem to have picked on you because becoming more optimistic about the state of the world recently. Is that accurate, or did I make it up? Oh, God. I don't know. I mean, I suspect you misinterpreted something. And it is quite possible you didn't. It's quite possible that you caught me on a day where I was relatively optimistic, because I go back and forth on these, right? Right now, I'm super pessimistic because of what's going on in Gaza, because of how the world's responding, because I have this gnawing sense that something really bad is going to happen economically. That the current situation there's just too many contradictions, seeming contradictions in the way our economy is functioning, and something has to give. I can't say I'm optimistic right now. I can't say I'm optimistic. But, tomorrow is a new day. Richard said, happy birthday, Yaron. Regarding Medicare, beware of income-related monthly adjustable amounts, IRMAA, which increase your premiums based on your income. 2 years ago, it burnt me in 2020 after I had a prosperous 2018. Interesting. Why would anybody then sign up for those? Why do they even exist? Anyway, one of these days I'm going to have to do my research and figure out what the hell is going on with this Medicare stuff. And my understanding is that some stuff you elect and then you're stuck with it to the end of times, or to the end of your times. You're stuck with your decision. So you better get it right early on. Plus, it's your health involved, and so you better get it right anyway. So there you go. All right, we're only like 120 short. So, 6 questions at the $20 level, two questions on the $50 level really get us to our target. It would be really, really great if we could get to our target today. It would be cool. It would be very cool. All right, let's see. We still have a bunch of questions. Andrew, and we've got about, we've got until 5, so about 45 minutes still to go. So you can ask lots of questions. You can ask 12 $10 questions. That's cool too, because I have enough time to answer them. Happy birthday, another year wiser. We all know there are negatives, but what's the best part about getting older? God, the best part about getting older is that you are much wiser about the world, hopefully. You're much wiser about your own time and the importance of it. Yeah, I mean, I think the main thing is wisdom about the world, wisdom about what's good for you, what makes a good life, wisdom about, your own priorities, your own values. You're less likely to waste time because you realize you don't have that much more of it. So it's things like that. I think that as you get older, it's just the preciousness of life. everything becomes more urgent in terms of, being good at living. Being good at living. PB, happy birthday. Arizona defines driving a car as a privilege granted by the state, explicitly not a right. Thus, Arizona can only revoke. Is this a proper conception of rights and regulation by a government? No, absolutely not. You have a right to drive. You have a right to live. You have a right to act. You have a right to do whatever you want to do. And the state can only stop you from acting if your action is harming others. If your action, not just harming, but violating the rights of others. If your action is violating the rights of others. If you are not violating rights, then there is no basis by which the government can stop you from acting. That's true whether the action is good for you or bad for you. So the idea that you can drive only by the grace of God, or the state in this case, is a complete misunderstanding of rights, a misapplication of rights. And it's hard to believe that any state, particularly Arizona, that had Goldwater as its senator, would fall for such a ridiculous statist perspective on individual rights. Rights of freedom of action, not restraints on action, freedoms of action. And the fundamental freedom, the fundamental right is the right to life, which means the right to act on your own, in pursuit of your own life. Maribel says, happy birthday, but what about the poor? And also, what about the poor? Thank you, Maribel. Appreciate it. I mean, what about the poor? I don't know what about the poor. Somebody please explain to me, what about the poor? What is it about them that you want to answer? I'm happy to answer anything about the poor that somebody wants to submit as a question. All right, I'm Meerkat. If not for Ayn Rand, there's a very good chance that this world will have made me turn either to nihilism or to God, mentally screwed me up like something else. Please, Gaza must be destroyed. Yeah, I think for most of us, Ayn Rand was a lifesaver. Some people literally, for others, I have no idea where I'd be. I'd be some kind of cynical, I don't know, pragmatist, I guess. I don't think I would have turned to religion. And I don't think I could have turned to nihilism, so it would have been some kind of cynical pragmatist. Yeah, I mean, she saved all our lives. Wesley Lopez, per Wikipedia, Lebanon has a laissez-faire economy. Is this true? And if so, why is their economy doing so poorly? There you have it. Every reason in the world never to believe anything you read in Wikipedia. Lebanon does not have laissez-faire economy in any meaningful way, right? Laissez-faire maybe in the sense of anarchy. What Lebanon has is anarchy. And this is what, quote, anarcho-capitalism is. It's Lebanon. But Lebanon does not have capitalism. It might have laissez-faire in the sense of leave me alone so anybody does whatever the hell they want, anarchy. But yeah, that's what Lebanon has, but there's no capitalism in Lebanon. Lebanon is a society of gangs. It's the gangs are primarily, but not exclusively, divided by religious affiliation. You've got the Christian gang, but you've got actually at least 2 Christian gangs. You've got a Druze gang. You've got a couple of Shiite gangs, at least 2 Shiite gangs, and you've got at least 1 Sunni gang. And they are just fighting each other for control. There are lots of regulations and controls on the books to regulate the economy, but it doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is which gang do you belong to, and does the gang have the upper hand at this any given moment in this particular geographic area? And if so, it can do whatever it wants to do. And you basically pay the gang to protect you in the area in which you live, and you hope that they will continue to be effective at protecting you. But it won't last very long, because gang affiliations and gang relationships and gang, who is aligned with who changes constantly. This is anarchy. You want to see how anarcho-capitalism works? It's Lebanon. So no, there's no laissez-faire if what you mean by laissez-faire, you mean capitalism. There's no laissez-faire if what you mean by laissez-faire is a laissez-faire economy. The fundamental cornerstone of a laissez-faire economy, of a laissez-faire capitalist economy, is the rule of law, i.e. the protection of individual rights, which requires a strong monopolist over the use of force in a particular geographic area, and objective laws that everybody knows and can plan accordingly and can live accordingly. Lebanon has none of that. None of that. No objective laws, no monopoly over the use of force, but in any particular geographic area. None of that exists. Lebanon is chaos, anarchy. Let's see. All right, we're still about $112 short, guys. So we got over 100 people watching live. Again, you guys make this show possible. All right, let's see. Michael, what exactly did Ayn Rand not like? Why exactly did Ayn Rand not like chess? Because in chess, A isn't A? No, of course in chess, A is A. And there are rules and everything. The reason she didn't like chess is she thought, particularly looking at Russian grandmasters in the Soviet Union era, the chess was a way to escape reality. The chess was divorced from reality. That it was something that you focused your mind on, you got good at, in a sense. You use this unbelievable IQ you have, this unbelievable intelligence you had, in order to do this thing on a board, on a game. And you evaded the rest of reality. You ignored it. You didn't apply your mind to it. And the chess, a game, became your life. And that is what she didn't like about it. Particularly, Soviet chess masters who were the best in the world, but never applied their mind to criticizing the Soviet Union. If they were so geniuses, they should have known what was going on around us. One of the things I admire about Kasparov, Garry Kasparov, is that right? Is that he is a chess genius, one of the greatest chess players, maybe the greatest chess players of all time. And he is very active politically, intellectually, culturally. He applies his genius. I've met him once. I was at an event that he was at, and I met him once. He's a real powerhouse intellectually. And right now, he's one of Putin's biggest opponents. He can't go back to Russia. He'd be arrested and killed. They probably try to kill him on numerous occasions overseas. He's a real fighter. He's a fighter for freedom. He understands, at least to a large extent, what freedom means and its importance and significance. So I think that that is what she was looking for. I don't think she'd quite have hated chess quite as much if the chess champions were like Garry Kasparov is today. Noah, do you think it's possible eventually scientifically to make animals like humans by inserting the ability to perceive things conceptually, to reason? I mean, it's not that you would have to just inject something to them. You would have to change the structure of their brain. You would have to do a lot more than that. So I don't know, but potentially. I don't know why anybody would want to, but potentially. But you would have to create a frontal cortex. You would have to create much of the brain structure that human beings would have. Now, why anybody would want to do that within another species, I don't know. But I don't know that there is any barrier theoretically, biologically, from doing that once we have a much greater understanding of what is responsible for human consciousness and what is responsible for free will, and if once we can recreate that, I'm not sure we can. I don't know how many hundreds of years it's going to take for us to be able to recreate that. It's not easy. It's not easy. Right. Barry Hoover just came in with $50 sticker. Thank you, Barry. I appreciate it. That is very nice. He's getting us very close to achieving our target on my birthday. It would be fantastic if we got to the 750. So anybody else who wants to do $50 would really get us to the target. So, or maybe somebody just stepping in and doing $62 and getting us there and getting it over with. That would be nice. Artin, happy birthday, Yaron. Thank you, Artin. I'm very happy to know about your show and Objectivism. So you're new here. That is great. I'm really happy to have you discover Objectivism and my show. So thank you for joining and thank you for getting interested. Is discrimination allowed under capitalism by private businesses? How far? Absolutely, it's allowed. It's allowed. How as far as as long as it remains, in a sense, discrimination, that it doesn't spill into force, violence, violating somebody's rights. Me saying, I don't want you in my restaurant does not violate your rights. It's my property. I can decide who comes to my property and who doesn't. Me going out of my restaurant, hunting you down, that violates your rights. So discrimination, according to Objectivism, based on things like color of skin, would be immoral, would be wrong, would be disgusting in most cases, would be something that would cause me not to visit your store, but should be legal. It's none of the government's business. None of the government's business. So you would have to, in terms of how far, you would have to kind of lay out a scenario in order for me to kind of tell you if that was too far. But I can't imagine what too far would mean, right? I don't know what that actually means. You'd be able to put up a sign on your store saying no Jews allowed. Again, I would never go into the store that had that sign. But you have every right on your property to choose who to associate with and who not. That is part of what individual rights are. It's a shame that the Civil Rights Bill of 1964, which had a lot of good things in it, also included this prohibition on private discrimination. Because I think it basically is responsible for the rise of, I think to some extent, woke, and to the rise of discrimination that exists today, racism that exists today, even if it's not manifest in discrimination. The racist attitude on the left and on the right are really a product of an inability and by law and to discriminate, and a force to reverse discriminate, in a sense, right? The whole affirmative action thing. Thank you, Artin, and I hope to see you on the show. Bree, the people love inflation. If they hated inflation, they would stop asking for government intervention. We blame government, and the left blames corporations, but it's 100% the fault of the people. Well, I don't think so. I don't blame the people. I blame the intellectuals. The people don't know where inflation comes from. The people don't understand what causes inflation. And the intellectuals constantly confuse them about the causes of inflation. It was a supply shock. It was inevitable because of COVID. It was unexpected. Nobody knew this would cause inflation. What can you do? It's just life. So how are the people, supposed to understand the economic principles that cause inflation when their intellectuals never teach them, never explain it to them? Indeed, give them contradictory, wrong, horrendously wrong information about it. So no, my view is that this is all just the intellectuals' fault. I don't blame people. Ayn Rand was very clear about saying, you know, the housewife, the simple guy, gal, go to work every day, make a living, trying to improve the life of their family, and they constantly, you know, they don't have time to study economics. And when suddenly the cost of living goes up and they don't know what to do, and the radio and the television and the newspapers keep telling them it's not the government's fault, it's evil corporations, it was inevitable, it's I don't know, whatever it is, but they don't blame the government, then what is they supposed to do other than to say, well, help us, somebody solve this. Government, please come to our help. They don't know that they're asking for help from the people who actually did it. And there's no way for them to know unless the intellectuals stop defaulting on their responsibility. And this is a major moral default. Arum, 2049. Happy birthday, Yaron. Thank you. Don't recall hearing you talk about effective acceleration movement, EACC. I still think it's one of the most positive movements in the culture despite of flaws. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, but it is flawed significantly. I did answer a question about it yesterday and spend a little bit of time talking about it yesterday. And, you know, what do you call it? Explained my position about it, at least part of my position about it yesterday. And I'll do more of that. I'll do more of that. Right. Jason, is my recollection correct that Churchill opposed Project Ajax Mode coup as he would rather send gunboats to defend its oil interest, but for some reason caved in? Is there any good source on that? I'm sure there is. I just don't know. I don't know if that's true or not. I just don't know that part of the history well enough. Sorry. Maybe if somebody sponsors a show in Iran, I can do the research to try to figure that out. Arum, do you think the world turning their backs on Israel will motivate Israel to fight harder, since it seems like they are on their own? The problem is that Israel is being undermined from within as well. On the one hand, you have crazy religionists who want Israel to ignore the world, but for all the wrong reasons, and to do, in a sense, the right thing, but for all the wrong reasons. They're mystics, and they're very dangerous. On the other hand, I saw a headline yesterday in Haaretz, which is the most intellectual of Israeli papers, but it's also the most left-wing, saying that Israel needs to take the ICC seriously, that maybe this is a wake-up call, maybe the ICC is right. So you have people even within. So I don't, maybe, but I don't see anything good coming of Israel being alone, really. Other than maybe it emboldening the worst elements, with some of the worst elements, the kind of religious fanatical elements within Israeli society. That's where I think, unfortunately, we're heading. I just don't see. I don't see good coming out of this evil. Michael, I am disappointed but not shocked to see Nikki Haley now say she will vote for Trump. Yes, I was not surprised at all. She wants to stay part of the Republican Party. She hasn't fully endorsed him. It is interesting whether Trump is now considering her for the VP role and whether she would take it if she was considered. I don't know. It wouldn't shock me. But yeah, hard to tell. It's disappointing. I wish she would have kind of stuck with an anti-Trump position all the way through and done like a Paul Ryan. I'll write in a Republican candidate because I can't vote for Biden, but I won't vote for Trump either, which is, I think, the right attitude. Maribel says, don't forget, what about the poor? We'll get there. We'll get there. One of these days, I'll answer that question. Kenny says, happy birthday, Yaron. Thank you, Kenny. All right, so we only have 2 questions left, and we're basically $11 short for our goal. $11. So somebody, maybe, nice birthday gift, do an $11 sticker, and we're done. Because Barry did a $20 sticker, $19.99. Thank you, Barry. So that got us much closer. RDF did a sticker. Gene did a sticker. Gene did 2 stickers. Kenny says, happy birthday. Thank you, Kenny. We said Barry did a $50 sticker. So that's where we are now. All of that has gotten us to the point where it's $11 away. It's this close, and we only have like 3, 4, 5 minutes because 2 questions are left. So here we go. Happy birthday, Yaron. For your information, 4 law professors, including our friend Adam Ossoff, seek GoFundMe support to travel to Israel to gather info on October 7th assaults. I think that's really good and important. Certainly, if Adam is involved, that is excellent. I trust Adam. I mean, this is my concern, and it's not a big concern, because anything like this will help. Does it matter, right? Is there any ambiguity about what happened on October 7th? Is anybody really innocent out there that this will convince? So I'd support a GoFundMe to travel there. So I'll check it out. But I just wonder, whether anybody who now holds a anti-Israel or neutral position would be swayed by any fact that people present. Don't know. I just don't see it. Lewis, $40. Thank you. We'll get to your question in a second. Kenny did the $11, or actually 11 euro. So even better. Jacob did $3. So together we definitely passed the goal. Paul says happy birthday, $5. Thank you, Paul. So we're nicely past the goal. Thank you guys. Really appreciate it. It's great to have us pass the goal during our birthday. We're actually at like $800, which is over $750, which was the goal. You can still ask questions, by the way, because we've still got 20 minutes if you want me to keep answering questions. Louis Shi, if your parent was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, what extent would you go to take care of them, put them in a home? God. I mean, I would put them in a home, and I would, I love my parents, and I wouldn't want to see anything bad happen to them. So I would try to put them in a good home where they could be taken care of. I would go visit them periodically, but not too often. Particularly if they've got Alzheimer's, they can't remember who I am, then the value of that is minimal. But I would make sure that their last years are comfortable as possible, given that disease. The reality is that I believe that I really do think that if you have Alzheimer's, and you have Alzheimer's, and you're still at a point where you're still self-aware, and you know that it's only going to get worse, I would commit suicide. I mean, I don't understand why people don't. And I would fly to Oregon or fly to Amsterdam or wherever it is that they are willing to engage in euthanasia, and I would euthanize myself. God, I think euthanasia is a moral necessity, requirement. It's a moral good, and it should be made available, particularly for people who know they have Alzheimer's, but are still competent enough to be able to make a decision about themselves because they know it's only going to get worse, because it doesn't get better. So, yeah. I thought euthanasia was legal in Oregon. One of the benefits of being a blue state. Right? Jacob Collin, I plan to visit my girlfriend in Taiwan in September, October. Do you think it will be safe for that time? What about 3 years from now? Yeah, I mean, I don't think China's invading, but China is threatening. It's rattling the cages. But I don't think they'll invade. I think they're too worried about losing. They're too worried about sanctions. They're too worried about being cut off from the global economy. They can't afford a war. Their economy is struggling right now. Who knows about 3 years from now? You can't tell. And, ask me in September, October before you leave. But I would feel pretty safe in going. I'm going to Israel in September, by the way. So we'll be in September. I'll be in Israel. Probably do shows from Israel. So we'll be talking from Israel to let you know. All right, last question. Anybody wants to jump in with something? Now's the time. Finn Harper, when is the ending reflective of a time yet to be? I have no idea what that means. I guess that's a joke because it doesn't mean anything. Happy birthday again. Thank you, friend Harper. Thank you for the support. All right, guys, thank you. Thank you for the support. Really, really, really appreciate it. Tomorrow, I promise to have a positive or historical topic. I might be doing a historical topic tomorrow, talking about money, the history of money, partially in preparation for my Jordan Peterson presentation next week. So stay tuned for tomorrow. Tomorrow we might have like an hour and a half talk on money. That's kind of a cool topic, always a good topic to talk about. So I will see you guys tomorrow, same time, 2 p.m. East Coast time. Thank you for all the happy birthday wishes from everybody. Really, really, really appreciate it. Thank you for blowing through the goal. And yeah, I'll catch up with you at 2 o'clock tomorrow. Bye, everybody.